Hey guys, Akariss here. I believe we have enough information to cover Legendary Sigurd in today's video, so I figured I'd compile my opinion, some builds, and what I expect of him in the future of Heroes. So yeah, feel free to enjoy the video, but before you do, make sure you go watch the FEH channel reaction, impressions, analysis video before this, just to get a full picture story on this. Thank you guys, enjoy.
Let the lesson begin.
Alright guys, so starting off, we do have Sigurd pretty much fully detailed for us. We kind of know what to expect. He's a win legendary hero. He's the third one. He's fairly good, I would say, but there's definitely some problems in Sigurd that I should address during this video, and as always will remain objective and critical towards it. So Sigurd is I'd say a pretty good stat spread considering what his weapon and preference B skill do. But he is going to need a bit of a kit change and definitely a certain mentality to using him properly. So 41 attack is very high, and he may very well have an attack super boon to bring that even further, bringing him into the likes of like close to Brave Edelgard in terms of attack stat and such. So that's pretty good. Defense is really high as expected. His res is not that important, and his speed is salvageable, but it's not bad. It's pretty good. What we should talk about though is the skills he comes with, and what they mean, what they actually do and such. So Legendary Sigurd's special basically always gives him mobility, which means it's kind of like a keeper. Like you got to keep it to really make use of him, I feel. The great thing about it is it's going to fire off all the time and give him 25% of his attack damage. So the higher his attack, the more scaling it does, and that's really good. On top of that, it gives your allies additional mobility and attack bonus. So he has a lot going for him, and I feel he's going to remain viable because of his mobility and kind of utility that he provides others regardless of how old he ages, and that's very important for a legendary nowadays. On top of that, we already know what Crusader's Ward does. That's his preference B skill, where if someone who's ranged attacks him consecutively, he reduces damage by 80%. Think like deflect missile, deflect magic in one kind of deal. So he needs that to score optimally in arena. I don't think it's the greatest B skill, but it is okay. We'll talk about it in a moment, of course. And anyways, so he has damage reduction on initiation, and always has damage reduction if an enemy is ranged. So like mages and bowmen and such. I feel like his weapons condition is fairly easy to achieve, and the damage reduction is really appreciated. Plus he has that auto follow-up, but that does make him similar to Seliph, where he is fairly weak to null follow-up, and we will talk about that. So if you want to use him as a carry in Ether raids, either during a bonus season where he's a bonus unit or in just win season, you're going to need to give him distant counter. And if you feel like you really want to get the consistency out of him, I feel like quick riposte is needed on top of his auto double to beat out impact effects on him, because I don't really see him one-shotting everyone despite his special being really good and despite him having a sky-high attack stat. It may not be needed, but I feel like quick riposte will get around a bunch of potential sturdy impact units, or just units in general who like try to deny a double. His damage reduction will really help him tank, and he doesn't really need Crusader's Ward because that's only going to realistically help against stuff like Reinhardt or maybe Cav healers or something. But if you have Mystic Boost, you don't really need to worry about that. Healing mostly comes from Mystic Boost. He's going to really rely on his special and his weapon to really carry him forward, but the damage reduction does make him a very solid carry. However, if you feel like he is getting those kills, then once he's more invested with like low attack, defense, and B skill, and his auto double in his weapon, you may not need quick riposte, and he's definitely just going to be able to kill most things off of his special and high attack stat anyways as a carry. I think he can work just fine, but he's going to have kind of similar weaknesses to many other Cavs who can't run no follow-up, he can't really run null C disrupt, and a lot of his healing comes from Mystic Boost. So he's also fairly weak to AoE specials because his damage reduction doesn't apply to that. In combat it would, but out of combat his low res is something to be desired. It would make him fairly good on light season if you have stuff like dagger or air to pump up his res further, but generally speaking, at least he can be like supported by Matilda for example. Not bad. Like he's nowhere near. I'd say Seliph is like I like Seliph a lot, but it goes to show you the difference of Seliph, who just strictly relies on his on his like desperation enemy phase effect, and that's it. Like he's strictly combat based, whereas at least Sigurd has great mobility, provides his allies with mobility, and has damage reduction on top of all this. Like he's really stacked in that regard. Now, if you're going to use them in Arena, obviously you got to run a bunch of 300 SP skills, including Crusader's Ward. So Distant Counter and Crusader's Ward doesn't have that great synergy because usually you don't get doubled, but it's something you have to do. And I feel like to really get the most out of them, you should be running Distant Counter. We'll talk on the matchups later on why something like that is important when you consider so many ranged threats. But his weapon at least gives him that great damage reduction needed, and he does want to initiate on most enemy units, so in a solo should be good, and at least enemy phasing through distant counter and his weapon should be okay as long as you're taking on range units and such. But even melee units, he has a fairly good time against most, I feel. Finally, if you don't have like distant counter, or you really want to take advantage of Crusader's Ward and his weapon, then maybe you can opt to just not use distant counter at all, and then just be running like his basic attack, defense, catch. This will make him more like melee combat reliant, and maybe just soak hits from range units. But I don't necessarily like this playstyle because there are a lot of dual dancers and really strong units on enemy teams. Like dual lift will pierce through his damage reduction, for example, and that will really hurt him quite a bit. Of course, you might run into stuff like Innis or Deadeye as well, and then he's got like basically no chance to survive all that, which is why you definitely want like distant counter to make him work. But anyways, let's talk about some of his matchups that I feel are really important to his usage. So, Legendary Sigurd, I feel, will slot in nicely into win season. As long as your enemy phase in Corrin, he should win that matchup fairly easily, just because he's got good damage reduction, he's got his auto double, and generally speaking, he's just going to hit really hard, and she won't really have her special ready. At least that's how I feel about it. You don't want to like player phase into Corrin. I feel it could be more even, but Sigurd should have the advantage there. He's definitely going to win against Elwood without a doubt. Now, I think all range matchups here, basically Alm, Julia, and Celica, for example, and maybe Chrom, maybe, that's more of a maybe, he should be able to win decisively because of the extra damage he gets from his special and the damage reduction he gets with his turfing. So and just sky high rocket attack is going to absolutely kill a lot of these one shot. For example, Julia, despite lowering attack, having triangle advantage, her low defense will guarantee that Sigurd is going to win that matchup without a doubt. So I could see him just hitting back one shot for sure. However, Lilina's AoE special, and the fact that his damage reduction doesn't apply to AoEs, should mean that Lilina will likely kill him, and Claude has null follow-up, which is a weakness to him, and as a result of that and his own damage reduction, plus Claude could run Deadeye, and if Chrom runs Deadeye, for example, then Sigurd is going to be in a world of hurt. Like, he's going to be a lot more helpless to run those matchups, and I don't see him one-shotting either Chrom or Claude because of their higher defense stats or damage reduction in some form. Just in general, they're going to be able to take a hit and then maybe kill him on the second, or kill through that using like Deadeye. So he's going to have more trouble there. Now, he should win against someone like Legendary Leaf because of Crusader's Ward and turfing, no problem. He beats his own son because the son has no player phase. You could probably even engage Seliph and probably win, and Roy isn't really worth talking about. He should also have a fairly easy time against Edelgard because his auto follow-up will create a speed check, and I think his speed is just enough to do that. So all in all, like, Sigurd is in a fairly good spot. I feel he's a decent like legendary hero. He should age well because of mobility, and he's not completely reliant on his like combat. Someone like Seliph, obviously more reliant on combat. It's gonna be a fairly good like legendary hero to invest into, similar to Claude for win season. However, he may not be the best one to go for, especially being melee cav, susceptible to trenches, and the fact that he can't really run Gale Force means that his mobility of like going in and out won't be that good. He'd have to like go in and maybe just stay in position. So the lack of a Gale Force also I feel kind of limits him in this regard. So really that's all I'm gonna say about this one, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think of Sigurd in the comments below. Who are you still waiting for on a legendary version? I know I'm still waiting for like Micaiah and Valencia maybe we see like Sheeta. Like those are all really cool options that I think we'll get. Sigurd I feel was like literally the last protagonist or main character from the FE series that didn't have his legendary, excluding Micaiah, I guess. So he finally got what he deserved, and I'm pretty happy for that. But yeah, in 2021, these are the type of legendaries we get. So let me know what you think. As always, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That always helps me out, guys. Really, it does. And if you want to keep seeing content like this, that's all for today. See you in the next one, guys. Much love. Peace.
It's over.